Okay, here we are. Listen, I'm Brett, your Thankful Carnivore, here with a special edition of the Thankful Carnivore Report, and I'm really happy to have my friend Emily.
Hi.
And Emily's and I share a lot in common, besides the fact that we just eat meat. Emily, why don't you tell folks what it is we share in common?
We share mental illness, or we did share mental illness. We share freedom from the control that mental illness had over our lives.
Amen, amen, amen. And isn't it nice to be free?
Oh, it's so beautiful. It's like the best crack ever.
Oh, I think that we were so blessed to learn about what we learned when we learned it. And, we're both people of faith, and
Yes.
that definitely played a role that I can't discount on any level because I wasn't smart enough to seek it out on my own. Well, let's get into it. I have been dying to talk to you for a number of reasons, primarily because you don't just have the mental illness experience, you work in the mental health field as a licensed therapist, child therapist.
I'm actually not licensed anymore. I decided not to renew my license.
Okay.
So I just practice just with my masters.
Okay.
As far as I work with families. That's
Beautiful.
how.
Beautiful. Listen, there's a whole bunch of questions that I want to look into what was it like for you when you were sick trying to communicate with people? Now, I suffered from chronic depression, graduated to major depression with psychotic features.
Lucky you.
And then when they couldn't find any med combination that was supposed to work, then they changed me to bipolar 2, but I never bought that for a minute. And they put me on a couple of meds for that, and then they're like, well, maybe you were just with psychotic features. My point is I was in really bad shape. And you suffered from bipolar disorder.
Yes.
Which I know from having worked in the mental health field in a private profit psych hospital in Johnson City, Tennessee, as a counselor, that bipolar disorder is very, 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 very awful to have to experience. Could you talk about that? What were some of your symptoms? What was bipolar disorder like for you?
I felt like I was two different people. I felt like I was this sharp, brilliant, loving, amazing, amazing person sometimes. And then other times I felt like I was this dark, triggered, angry, irritable, clueless, confused person. So I was these two different people, and I didn't know which one I really was. I didn't really want to be this, confused, horrible person, but I knew that that was still part of the package at that point. It was just me. And there were days where I was able to function. There were days that I was able to do great. And that's why I still was able to get my associate's degree, my bachelor's degree, my master's degree. I was still able to practice as a therapist, but it was only on those days. On the dark days, I was in bed. I was in bed. I wasn't able to function. I wasn't able to do anything. And so that was really difficult for me because I just didn't know who I really was.
Now, when you say you couldn't do anything, was it a lack of energy? Was it a lack of, or that unseen, unspoken, oppressive thing that hits folks with thought disorders, mood disorders? That's just like, for me, it was kind of almost like, I know that thing, getting up and moving around would be good for me, but I feel like that there's this hand, and you're not getting up from here. You don't have the energy, you don't want to, even though you know you should. What's the point?
Yeah.
What was it like for you?
Mine was like a hoodie. It was just this like darkness. And it was like I couldn't see anything else except for just my misery. And I couldn't seek anything else except for relief. And the only way that I felt relief was to sleep. That was my drug of choice.
Got you.
That was my safe place on those dark days, was just putting in like earplugs, putting on a heavy blanket, like heavy blanket, and the blackout curtains, and just escaping into my little cocoon. That was my only way of just waiting out the misery.
I think I waited it out in a very similar fashion. Only I was prescribed Ativan, and I think when I ended, I was up to 2.5, 3 milligrams a day PRN, and I would just take some Ativan and go to bed, because I at least knew then it would stop for a while.
Yeah.
For a while.
Yeah.
And when you need just when a moment of relief.
Yes.
Is so precious, and I don't think people understand just exactly what that means. And it's kind of like a man trying to explain to a woman what it's like to be pregnant. There's absolutely no way you could do that and not sound stupid, sound ridiculous. And I think one of the reasons why I wanted to speak to you about was to talk about what it was like for you to try to communicate when you were sick.
Like I said, I would reschedule my clients. And so I never saw my clients when I was sick. And so that was the benefit of working in private practice, that I was able to do that. And I knew whenever I was on, and whenever I wasn't. So the days that I was not on, that I was off, I couldn't communicate to like anyone. Like if somebody would text me or message me or whatever, I couldn't even pick up the phone. It was like I was paralyzed. Somebody would be calling me and I was just like, I can't pick up that phone. I cannot pick up that phone. I cannot respond to that text. I cannot respond to that email. And then my son, thankfully, I was able to do the basics. I was able to get him off to school, every day. I was able to make sure after school where he was and that he was taken care of. I was able to feed him. I was able to do those basic things, but it was like a zombie doing it. It was like, don't talk to me. Just play your video games. Don't look at me. I can't give you anything more than the basics. And he knew that, and he adapted to that, unfortunately, poor kid. But then he knew that whenever mommy was okay, that he could run and jump on her bed and, laugh with her and watch a movie with her and talk with her and everything. But on the dark days, he knew to just kind of like stay away from me. And he knew to kind of take care of himself as far as, hey, I want to play this video game. So he would just go play the video game instead of bugging me about it, And
he learned some survival skills.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And it was all age appropriate. I mean, it was all, something that he was capable of doing, but he shouldn't have had to, he shouldn't have had to.
On the dark days, I can relate so much to what you were saying, the phone rang or the text you didn't want to answer, or somebody would ask a question that in and of itself was a benign question, but because of the way I perceived things, it was just horrible. I just couldn't deal with, I can't deal with this. Not only could I not deal with it, I couldn't explain to the person why I couldn't deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
Or I would I think one of the worst things is when I tried to explain, it just came out, gibberish. And it's a very frustrating time for me. And I'm certain for you that was because in the back of your mind, while on your dark days, was a part of you aware? Was there like a piece of you somewhere deep in that misery and in that darkness that like reminded you of what was really going on?
No, I was drowning. I was drowning and I was in survival mode and I had no clue. I was in complete confusion as to how can I be this person on Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday and then this person today. I was just like, and there was no rhyme or reason to it. There was no like, okay, well, if I stand on one leg and I do this and the sun is right here, then happy Emily will be here. No, it didn't matter. I was just this constant Russian roulette. I had no idea what to expect each day.
So you were slow cycling, or did you ever get into fast cycle?
I started out slow cycling. Yeah, I've been slow cycling for years, probably about, probably my whole life, but 8 years that I've been aware of the cycling.
Mm-hmm.
And then the end of 2018, I went into rapid cycling, and it was daily, sometimes even within the day. Like I would even start out and have my sessions in the morning, and then I would have to cancel my afternoon sessions because I would just feel myself just getting pulled back down into that darkness. And I'm just like, dang it.
Well, I just hate, because I can visualize that. For a lot of people who don't know this, a lot of folks know I worked in mental health, but I've not talked about it very much because I'm not licensed. Nobody's going to hire me to come back to work for them on some private psych ward somewhere. And if they did, then they should be fired immediately. But I remember at times, because when I worked in the field, even though I was a rookie and I was learning or whatnot, I did show some proficiency at it. And I would find myself sick, furious, angry, whatever was going on at the time with me. Because with me, my depression I was an angry, depressed person most of the time, but it sat on this sea, this ocean of dark, shadowy sadness that just had no end to it. But I couldn't perceive my environment accurately after a time. But part of me still remembered the therapist, who could observe. And so I could say, okay, well, you know what, that's suicidal ideation, Brett, for real. That's imaginary kind, that's the for real. And, and for me, it was, I never wanted to end my life, but it was, well, if you were going to do it, Brett, how would you do it?
Yeah.
Think about that.
Yeah.
We're not going to, and your thoughts suddenly aren't your own almost.
Mm-hmm.
Did you experience something similar to that? And when you did, as a therapist, were you like aware, or was it just beyond your reach then?
Well, I think definitely my background gave me an insight into knowing what was going on, but it wasn't enough to know how to fix it. You can label stuff all day long, and labeling it is great. Then you have a title and you have some symptoms and you get what it is, but it doesn't tell you how to manage it. As far as, I remember people would tell me, you need to write down and journal your cycles. And I'm like, okay, like I don't feel like even picking up the phone. How am I going to sit here and write, my suicidal ideation thoughts and everything else? So the only thing that it did really help me is it helped me to protect the other people around me, because I had seen, bad versions of how to manage bipolar disorder of people who cause complete destruction in their children or their families. And so I was able to just retreat. And that was the safest thing for me to do for my family, was to retreat whenever I was in that ugly, 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 ugly place.
Mm-hmm. Isn't it incredible the survival skills that we develop under in that kind of poisoned environment that only we can appreciate? I want to ask you about something. How well could you, when you were on the bad days in the bad place, how well and how accurately could you perceive your environment? In other words, when somebody spoke to you, what you heard was exactly what they said with the tone intended and all of that. Or did you see and look and things weren't necessarily that accurate upon reflection?
Yeah, I was definitely a lot more triggered. Everything, all my senses were heightened in that aspect of defensiveness, because I wanted to scream. I'm trying to function. I'm trying to survive here, and people didn't see that. All they see is, You knocked it out of the park yesterday. You're a therapist. You should know everything. You should do everything. And I wanted to say, I'm dying. I'm dying. I'm dying. Like, if I was dying of cancer right now, you wouldn't be talking to me like this. But there's no way for me to convey that to them. It's not their fault that they don't understand mental illness, you know? And the best tactic I could do was just to retreat.
How many of those learned survival behaviors have you had to really struggle with to kick to the curb since all your symptoms went into remission? Because I think that's one thing a lot of people just, oh, you were happy right from that moment on? Well, things must just be spectacular for you. And I'm like, well, they are by comparison, and every day's better than the day before, but I got a lot of stuff to unlearn, and I need to learn to replace those things with normal skills, happy skills. How'd that work for you?
Yeah, that was a very interesting process for me as well. It still is an ongoing process, in that I had this awareness of better, that things are better now than they were, but not necessarily best. And that's still something that I've been learning as I go. And honestly, I know this sounds really weird and self-centered, but what I realized is how brilliant I am. I realized how amazing it is that I survived. How amazing it is that I wasn't a drug addict. How amazing it is that I didn't kill myself. There's so much fight in me. There's so much brilliance in me that is just beautiful, beyond belief. And to operate in that and to stay on that and not beat myself up for the past however many years and go, oh, well, I shouldn't have married that idiot, or I shouldn't have done that, you know, or I shouldn't have taken that job, you know. But now to say, okay, well, here I'm at. Here's where I'm at. And I'm going to go in this direction, and I'm going to keep going in this direction, and I'm going to love myself. I haven't loved myself at all before. I hated myself. I always was hard on myself. And now I realize that isn't productive, that it's more productive for me to love and to forgive myself for that, to forgive myself for whenever I was so lost. Mm-hmm. And to operate in this now. And that's, I think, why my message is always to other people, start where you're at. Because if you start beating yourself up, then you're not going to get anywhere. You're not going to get anywhere to beat yourself up. You have to realize how amazing you are to have just survived. Just keep breathing. You're amazing.
And I think what's so powerful about that, Emily, and I got it from as soon as you started talking. People don't realize being mentally ill is hard on you physically. Most people's life is shortened by a third or more if you suffer from chronic mental illness. And folks like you and me who suffered for so many years, we're not supposed to get better because we don't, and this is not us being any more special than we already are, but it's a fact, and people could look up the numbers if they doubt me what I'm saying. Most folks don't make it to 60 years old, or if they do, their quality of life is horrendous.
Yep.
Because the combination of diet and meds and horribly mentally ill learned behaviors and the delusions, and this just all gets worse over time. It doesn't like plateau at a certain point.
Yeah, what do they call that? Comorbidity?
Yeah, comorbidity.
Yeah, where there's like, you know, if there's mental illness, then there's also chances of diabetes or, you know,
obesity.
Obesity, all sorts of other things. So the fact that we're alive and thriving, it's a miracle.
It's really
an absolute miracle.
I remember when Dr. Paul Saladino interviewed me last year, and he's like explaining all these meds that I was on and whatnot. And he's just like, it really is. You're lucky. I mean, most people don't come out on the other end at all. And he talked about how that was one of the frustrating parts about psychiatry, is because they would throw everything at the kitchen sink, and sometimes even the kitchen sink at people. And they just got worse. And of course, you and I know why that is now. And I think Dr. Saladino's got a good grip on it too, is because of the garbage we were putting into our mouths.
Yep.
Now, how, because you're a unique individual in so many ways, my dear, but a therapist who was bipolar, who's no longer got any symptoms whatsoever, working in the same field. Now, what has that been like for you as a therapist? Because you've got experience, firsthand experience of mental illness that most people will, thank goodness, will never have or comprehend in their whole life. And you're dealing with children in mentally deficient, mentally unsettling situations.
Yeah, I've actually always operated from a very personal place. I was never one of those therapists that was like, so how does that make you feel?
Oh, thank God.
You know, I was never one of those therapists. I was always the type that said, wow, I feel like this when something like this happens to me. Tell me about your experience, you know? And so I've always, and that's why I am such a great child therapist, is because I'm able to get on their level and to be very transparent with them. I love working with teenage girls and letting them know that I have bipolar disorder. And I've always been like that. And now I can say, I remember feeling like that, and now I feel better. Before, all I could do was just get in the puddle with them. Mm-hmm. I could just get in the puddle with them and love them, but I didn't really have the tools to, I mean, I had the tools that were given to me, like, let's start a journal on your feelings, and let's think about our happy thoughts, and blah, blah, blah. And have you tried breathing?
Have you been walking in the sun enough today? Have you taken a 10-minute walk in the sun?
Yes. And so now I can approach it from, I've been there. I've went through all that misery, and I came out on the other side of it, you know, and that's just the coolest experience, to be able to transfer all of that experience and knowledge to these people who are suffering, you know, especially teenage girls and teenage boys. I love to just let them know that they're not alone.
Well, I think it's really, really great that you enjoy working with that population. I always found teenagers, over the course of my life, and even now, they're, in my opinion, they're difficult to deal with, because you're teenagers, you got hormones going haywire, and then you've got all the social nightmares of being a teenager incorporated into that. And you know as well, you remember as well as I do what it was like to be a teenager. It's a tie between being pissed off and your hormones. You're preoccupied with your hormonal situation, and then you just want to be. You want to be popular, or at least you want to be friends, and everybody's, I just want to be normal and happy and have nobody hate me, you know?
Yeah.
Wow, girl. So many different directions we could go in with this. I really hope, and we're not winding down here, but it just dawns on me, we need to have like 3 or 4 of these, because there's just so many aspects of this. How, as a therapist going forward, have you utilized what you know about this way of eating?
It's actually hurt me a lot. It's hurt me a lot. And it's one of the reasons why I let go of my license, because I know myself, and I know that I'm not willing to play inside the rules. And inside the rules, as a therapist, a licensed therapist, you're not supposed to talk to them about food. And so I know that I'm not going to be able to do that. I'm not going to be able to do that and sit there and go, oh, I see you suffering and I know the answer, but I can't tell you.
Oh man.
So there's no way I can do that. There's no way I can do that. And especially with working with children, little children, you know, you have to be very careful how you approach that with their parents. You can't go to the child. You have to go to the controller of their environment, and that would be the parents. And so I've had to totally reorganize the way that I operate. And I call myself now a solutions consultant, because I'm not a therapist. I'm not a therapist in that I'm not licensed, but I don't operate in that I'm not going to follow the rules. I'm going to tell you what worked for me. I'm going to tell you what I found to be true and what I see being true for multiple people. I mean, I've had people, you know, Brett, you've been there. I've had people from New Zealand, from Australia, from Tokyo, from South America. They can't even get out of bed. They're just laying there in bed, and the most they can do is message me on Instagram. And I can tell them, you're not alone. You're not alone, and you're normal in that there's many people who have experienced this, and there's an answer. Stop eating sugar, stop eating carbs, and eat more meat. Eat more fat. And they listen and they get better. So who needs a freaking license? I don't want a license. I'm just going to tell you my personal experience and go from there.
I think that, and I think our experiences are far more powerful than people give them credit for. The telling of our stories is more powerful than the experts want to give it credit. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're moving the needle as a community in the direction that we're moving it in, is because we're offering real, measurable results.
Mm-hmm.
This is not, we're going to trick you psychologically into think you're getting better for a little while so that you get that adrenaline rush and, oh yeah, I'm on board. This is exciting. This is great. And nothing changes, but I'm still excited and I'm blinded to the fact it's not working. And I just burned my money up for nothing.
Exactly. And ethically, I couldn't do that. Ethically, there's no way that I could sit there and have families that are hurting give me their money.
Oh.
And me not offer them help,
Serious.
real help. And then I look at the situation with me personally, whenever I was on 900 milligrams of lithium, 80 milligrams of Prozac, 80 milligrams of Adderall just to get out of bed every day. There was a time that I was on Ativan, and then Ambien to sleep at night. You don't get out of that. You don't get out of that. You don't stop taking those medications and stay out of the psych ward and thrive and heal. The only difference was meat. The only difference was meat and God. But God brought me to the meat. But the meat and the fat was the only difference. And that's where the healing was. So I really have nothing else to say to people about coping skills until you get to that foundation of getting sugar and carbs out of your brain.
I can't agree more. That is just so spot on, my dear. And I use my psych skills just mainly to make the argument to people. Do you want because ultimately, as you well know, everybody makes a choice. Some of us choose health, some of us choose disease management, some of us make worse choices. And ultimately, the responsibility is ours to decide which road we're going to take. And I think it's common. You and I were both really sick.
Yeah.
A really long time. And for folks who are sick and tired of being sick and tired, they're the ones that I observe doing the best with this way of eating, because they're willing to set their ego on the shelf and whatever it takes.
I was talking to someone I was coaching yesterday, and she was like, but this, but that, but this. And I go, okay, there's only two alternatives here. You go back to what you were doing, or you keep trying this. And she was like, oh, yeah, no, I don't want to go back. And I'm like, then let's keep going forward. You know what I mean? It's just try this for 30 to 45 days. Try eating meat and fat for 30 to 45 days and then go from there.
And see how you feel.
Because where you were wasn't working.
Wow, we could do a whole episode just on coaching.
We should. We should.
Well, we probably will, dear. We probably will. This definitely won't be a one-off experience. Going forward, how do you see, I mean, I know the Center of Brilliance, your YouTube channel, spectacular, the Facebook group you started. I really enjoyed everybody there. I wish I had more time to hang out. And inevitably, when you schedule one of your meetings, I am already obligated. I am already obligated to be doing something at that time. But I know there's going to come a day when I'm going to look and see, I'm not scheduled for that moment. Oh, right.
Well, my goal is to get it with more notice. But right now I'm on Tom's Zoom, paid Zoom account. And so I kind of like, I'll be like, hey, can we do a meeting tomorrow? Or, hey, can we do a meeting in 2 days? So my commitment and my goal is to have it like at least a week out. So it's scheduled a week out. Because I definitely want to include you.
Well, thank you very much for that. And I desperately want to be there because, number one, it's a great group of humans. It's a great group of people. I mean, Tom and Raymond and Justin and everybody.
Joe, Zumbo.
Joe's fantastic. And we're all on the same page. And we come from a very widely diverse set of circumstances across ages, socioeconomics, live in different countries, the whole 9 yards. What are you hoping to do with the Center of Brilliance? What is your ultimate goal, or have you planned it out that far? Are you just kind of going day by day?
Well, Center of Brilliance, actually, it was already in the making before, whenever I was sick. And it was always something that I knew was there because I found it so applicable in my practice that whenever I would show a child their Center of Brilliance, I didn't have to micromanage the outcomes. They realized it was intrinsic. They realized they had this self-motivation to just go forward in their Center of Brilliance and the path of least resistance. And it was just magical. It was amazing. And I love that I discovered that even whenever I was sick, because now it's something that I see works on so many other scales of adults and people in, like you said, different time zones, different socioeconomics, everywhere. And so that really, it was birthed in that, but it covers so many other things than just carnivore. But carnivore is foundational. Eating right is foundational to getting to your Center of Brilliance. You know, I mean, if you're covered up by all this crap, you're covered up by all this inflammation and everything else, you can't operate in your Center of Brilliance. You know, you can't operate in that one thing that you're really, really good at, because there's some amazing things that God has designed just for you to create, just for you to do. That isn't going to happen if you're covered up by all this crap. So that's been the whole thing with Center of Brilliance. I opened up the Facebook group, as you know, after everything was no longer an opportunity for me on the other platform. And I had people going, Emily, I still want to talk to you. And so I was like, okay, here, go here, you know, go to this Facebook group. And then I was able to start, you know, making videos and stuff with Center of Brilliance and the YouTube channel. And I included the meatheads because they have been just such a strength to me. They saw my Center of Brilliance and they reminded me of my Center of Brilliance all along the way. They've been just cheering me on from the sidelines. And so also I see that their Center of Brilliance in that they are really, 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 really good at being curious. They're really good at researching stuff. They're really good at finding answers, and they make me better. They make me better because of their curiosity. And I just love having them around me. I love just conversing with them. I love talking to them. And so whenever I opened Center of Brilliance on the YouTube channel, it was like, oh yes, admin, admin, admin. Like these guys are my people, you know? And I knew that they would be the best to help me kind of navigate through this. And then they've also been the ones encouraging me to continue coaching, because I thought that being off of that platform meant no more coaching ever again. And they were like, no, shut up. Shut up. You're still a coach. You're still able to help people. And if anything, you can help people more because you have your master's in clinical counseling. And I was like, oh, yeah. Oh, okay. And so then whenever I started operating in coaching on my own, it just made everything just kind of like aligned and made sense.
Isn't it amazing when we remove inflammation from our bodies about how even the most difficult situations are manageable? And the solutions that, I mean, I could, just something as simple as the car won't start. Oh my God, what are we going to do? How are we going to figure this out?
My whole day is ruined.
Oh, everything's just gone straight to hell. We're never climbing out of this pit. And now it's like, well, yeah, that sucks. But okay, there's the solution.
Yes.
There's another solution, but it's not as good. And the best solutions, the first thought or the second thought now, as opposed to, because you're not burning up all that energy, grinding your brain on things that are just completely irrelevant to the solution. But
we are so on the same wavelength.
A couple of quick things, and then we'll get out of here. I genuinely believe that this way of eating is the solution to many of society's problems. And I'm not going to get into all the details, but my foundation for that thought is an inflamed brain is incapable of clarity of thought and optimal performance.
Yep.
And what you've been to meetups, you've hung out with people who aren't inflamed online, and I bet offline as well by now. All of those things that make dealing with other people difficult seem to be gone in those situations. Is that your experience?
We have fun. We have fun, and we're not triggered, and we're not trying to trigger each other.
And if we disagree with somebody, we just share our disagreement and life goes on. It's not like, well, screw you, I'm done with this. Block. You're out of here now. Well, that's wonderful. I've enjoyed this so much. Oh my gosh, we could talk for hours and hours and hours and hours.
We should talk for hours and hours and hours.
Well, we're going to, as life and time permit. Because we both had this thing where we got to eat, we got to pay, we got obligations, and I've been married 1,000 years, and now now I'm not crazy anymore. So we're like enjoying life on a whole different level. You just got married, so you're enjoying life on a whole new level.
Yes.
That takes time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Where can people find you, dear, and how would be the best way to get in touch with you?
Well, I'm definitely on Instagram at Carnivore Minds. That's the account that I use the most. But if somebody wants to directly contact me for coaching, the best way is to email me and have the coaching be the subject and say, my email address is yourcenterofbrilliance@gmail.com.
Beautiful. Even I can remember that. I forget everything.
And it's so funny. You got to spell it right, though.
Yeah. I saw that video the other day, a couple of days ago, your most recent video, and you pointed that out. Now, if you hadn't pointed it, I would never have looked.
It's two L's. Two L's.
And you keep wearing it. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
It's
well, It was funny.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
It was funny because I went to the company and I said, I want a shirt that says Center of Brilliance. And they sent it back to me to proof it. And I go, yes, that's perfect. And I didn't check the spelling. So when I got it in the mail, I was like, well, that's my fault. I said yes. I approved the thing, you know. But then I was like, oh, all you got to do is just add the L. Like, there you go.
Well, I think it's great. Emily, you are truly a treasure. Congratulations on surviving and learning how to thrive, and just keep put your array of light for folks who have been living in darkness a long time. Keep being that beacon of hope that others can spot as they go along their journey and be pulled into the light. And I don't need to tell you this, but I'm going to. And keep eating your meat and drinking your water, girl.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Emily, for hanging out with the Thankful Carnivore today. I've enjoyed this immensely.
Me too. Thanks, Brett.
Thank you, darling. Let me kill this recording here. Stop